Bartholomew. Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Victor here from Dixon High School.
Yes, Mr. Sands. How are you? Science, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm just fine, thank you. Have a good day today?
It went pretty well.
Okay. Good. Carla, Victor. Carlos, how are you? See you again. Maybe you can hear this time. Someone's on an iPhone. Who is that?
I'm on my iPhone.
And you are?
Hannah Faust. And Anita Miller here.
I got you, Anita.
Hi, Dr. Bell. Cindy Pajak.
I got you, Cindy.
Did you get me, Dr. Bell?
So what?
Did you get me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Good. All right. 5:30, maybe it won't take so long. First of all, I want to ask you if you have any questions, any comments, any concerns as it relates to our student teachers. What I want to do is to ask you to encourage this is a clinical teacher session. So I just want to ask the clinical teachers to please remind your student teachers to check their teaching capacity schedule on a regular basis. Also, I received an email regarding substituting, and if you have a need for your student teacher to sub, that is okay with us. We do prefer that they not substitute more than 5 days, but if they have to, the system needs that assistance, if you don't mind, give us a call and we can discuss it. It's not a big problem because each student will be evaluated based on their ability to serve. So we like to do that to help out if at all possible. Additionally,
Dr. Bell,
yes.
is this only for clinical teachers?
You could stand on. Yes, you're fine.
Okay.
It's okay because it's okay. If you didn't attend the last session, it's fine. So I did the teaching capacity, the sub. The students are required to attend a career fair, so they will be excused for that particular day to come to campus. So make sure that they are allowed to come, and to let you know that your students are on the schedules with the school systems, not the schedule for the University of Mount Olive. Additionally, you are supposed to register some information for Miss Lynn Sutton. If you are a student teacher and your own, please touch bases with your clinical teacher to remind them that that information needs to be completed. So towards the end of the process, they might receive their certificate for professional development and of course the stipend, and also be able to evaluate the program. As I said, there's a career fair, March 26th, I think. somebody refresh my memory, and the students are required to come to the career fair. Are there any questions, any comments, any concerns about anything that's going on as far as we're concerned? I'm trying to keep you posted of things that are happening. Now, I think that we talked about the task. Our students are required to take an assessment. It is the Praxis Professional Assessment for Teachers, the PPAT, and it is scored by ETS. Our students do have a score of 40 that they have to achieve. I think the highest may be 60, and a 44 in order to be highly qualified, just to earn some additional pay. Our students did fairly decent last semester, and I hope that they will do the same this semester. When we look at the tasks, let's look at building and submitting those tasks. And if you can help our students, we certainly would appreciate it. We're going to look at the task requirements today really quickly. First of all, I want to look at I'll go back and find the schedule for you. All right, let's look at task one. Task one, all the task 2, task 3, and task 4 are scored by ETS. Task 1 is scored by the professor. I don't know why I'm not finding what I need. Okay. Oh, no wonder. I'm sorry. I don't know why I clicked that. Gee whiz. No wonder. I knew I was in the wrong area. I kept saying, okay, there we go. All right. Our task 1, knowledge of students and the learning environment, which is scored by the professor. And we'll kind of look at that. And all the help, any help that you can offer our students, we certainly would appreciate it, because we know that you have the knowledge and the wisdom that would be needed in order to help our students become successful. Task 2 is assessment and data collection to measure and inform student learning. Task 3 is the design and instruction for student learning, and task 4 is implementing and analyzing instruction to promote student learning. Now task 4 comes along, has to have a video, which of course would be 15 minutes. It could be 3 5-minute segments unedited, or it can be a total of 15 minutes unedited altogether. Now task 1, as I indicated, is scored by the professor, supervising professor. So we'll just count on, see if we can find task 1 for you. I'm gonna show you, I'm sorry, y'all can't see because I haven't shown you my. I apologize, I'm working and not sharing. Okay, so let's just look quickly at the dates for spring 2020 for the task. All the tasks are due by 2 p.m. The first task isn't important because they will submit that to the supervising professor. But task, and they must get that done by the 14th of February. Now, please note that registration closes February 11th. So they must have, or they must have already registered, or at least registered by February the 11th. And they must register for the spring 2020. So if you're clinical, just ask your student teaching intern if they've registered for the PPAT. And of course, these are the deadlines. February 14th for task 1, and task 2 and 3 are both due in March. As a matter of fact, March the 12th. And then of course, task 4, April 9th. And of course, there are some other dates that are pertinent And of course, students can submit late, but you gotta look at the submission windows for those as well, if there's a reason. So let's go back to building and submitting tasks. I don't know why this thing is not working with me today. Okay, so here's task 1, and let's look at the requirements quickly. Okay. Task 1, of course, is the knowledge of students in the learning environment. And students have to complete an instructional and support resources chart, and they have to complete a student interest inventory. They have to do the contextual factors chart, as well as send home a written communication. Now, most of our students have already had practice in developing those, and they're just information that will be sent home to the parents. Okay. So again, documents or artifacts that will go along with task 1 will be the contextual factors chart, the instructional support resources chart, the interest inventory, and the communication home. Excuse me. This kind of jumps around, so I got to move it slowly. So the written commentary, of course, will be knowledge of students and the resources and procedures. And step 1, knowledge of students, text box 1-1, community, district, school, contextual factors that influenced instruction. Now, last week, I think I developed a checkoff sheet, but I sent that checkoff sheet to my 487. So if anybody wants it for this group, I can send it to you. But all I did, and to make sure that you do a good job, is look at the guiding prompts. And of course, read through the guiding prompts and answer each one of those prompts. The first one is to identify your chosen community factor. Then you're going to identify your district factor. And then you're going to identify your school factor. And with each one of those, you will identify and describe one possible instructional strategy and one learning activity that you can use in the classroom to further student learning. You must provide a rationale to explain how that strategy and activity connect to the community factor that you selected, how it connects to the district factor, and how it connects to the school factor. Now, all I'll say is this, and I say this all the time, please read carefully. And as you do these, once you say, oh, I've identified my community factor, check it off, okay? Once you have identified your strategy, check it off. Then your learning activity, check it off. And then after you provide your rationale, check it off, and then you're done. And that helps you to realize or understand that you have completed what you needed to do. So then text box 112, we talk about demographics and the knowledge of the students. Here again, identify your chosen classroom demographics factor, and you're gonna choose a student factor. And then you're gonna identify and describe a possible instructional strategy. You're gonna identify learning activity, and then you're gonna provide a rationale that explains how that strategy connects to the demographic factor and the student factor. Then we talk about resources and procedures. We talk about the available resources that will enhance student learning. And if you look at the guiding prompts, which are most important, it says select 2 resources from your chart. And we'll look at the charts in just a moment. And describe how you will use each one in your classroom to support student learning. Once you've done that, check it off. And then you are to select a particular characteristic that you listed on the knowledge of students in the contextual factors chart. and describe how a resource from that chart, different from this one, different from these two, could enhance student learning based on a particular characteristic selected. So with these two, you're going to tell how your resources will help support student learning. And then this one, you're going to look at a characteristic, okay, and tell us how it can enhance student learning, okay? Now with you, you have to remember now this group, and you have to remember that you are writing for, well, ETS, and it doesn't matter this time, I don't think, about the number of characters, because you're going to submit this to your professor. 122 is the student interest inventory. Everybody's familiar with that. You have to administer the inventory, and these are your directions, based on the compilation of information from the whole class. So your whole class. You need to analyze one example of how this information would influence an instructional decision. And B, use one. Then you do one student's completed interest inventory, and then you will analyze how you would use one item from that inventory to promote the student's engagement and learning within that classroom. Okay? Now, communicating with students and their families, we all know what that is. You got to send that letter home and describe one example of how your introductory communication addresses the demographic differences in the classroom. And remember now, you have to upload you have to provide your inventory and also a copy of your communication that you sent home. And it says here, it's not limited to websites, emails, school functions, activities, or a letter. It's up to you to use either one of those that you feel is best for you to use. And describe how your introductory communication fosters interaction among you, your students, and their families. Questions about those? Okay? Questions? Now the next one is activity 4, rules and procedures. It says access and review the rules and procedures for the classroom. And you know, most of the 493 students will have to submit their classroom management plans. And I'm reading this from a student standpoint so that the clinical teacher can understand what it is that the students have to do. They are to describe one example of a classroom rule or procedure and explain how the rule or procedure facilitates instruction, enhances student learning, and impacts the learning environment. Now, what I suggest to the students to do is that, as I said before, just check out each one of those as you do it. And then describe one example of a technology rule or procedure for that particular class, and explain how the rule or procedure facilitates instruction, enhances student learning, or impacts the learning environment. Okay? So that's it for task 1. Okay? So now.
I do have a question about task 1, Dr. Bell. When you're describing the classroom, are we describing what the classroom looks like, or just the students?
Have you read what the commentary asked you to do? Have you looked at task 1? And I'm not being funny.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what does it say for you to do? Because it'll tell you specifically.
I don't have it in front of me, but it if I can remember, it does ask about the grade level. Whatever it asked you for, that's what you provide, okay? And I think you'll be good to go back into that. If you pull that and look at it, for that prompt, it says for 111 that we just went over, you are to identify a chosen community factor, you are to identify a district factor, and you are to choose a school factor, okay? And just go back and read your, read the task. It will tell you exactly what you need to do. This is the instructional support resources chart. The type of resource, community. What is one example and the location that will provide a resource, or that provides a resource for the students from the community? It says from the building or district policies or programs. What's one example? Building programs or district policies or district programs or building policies that would provide resources for your students. Support staff. What types of support staff do you have at your school? What type of instructional materials do you have at the school? What kind of curricular programs do you have? What types of instructional technology is available to your students? Do you have access to the recorded student data? And anything else that would be helpful for those students to learn or to support, to help students stay engaged. Any questions about the instructional support resources chart? Okay. So let's look at the contextual factors chart. Okay, the types of factors, they are community, district, school, classroom demographics, which will probably answer that question we just talked about, but it will also be used, you can identify some of that information here. And knowledge of students. General context of your students, here you go. This is what you'll need. Students' grade and developmental levels. If you read that, then you write all that information over here. Now, once you develop the chart, remember now, it asks you to select parts from the two charts to use. So you don't have to use it all, just you have it so that you can use it. From the community, these are the kinds of things that they asked you to list. From the district, enrollment, percent of students receiving free and reduced lunch, the percent of students who are ELL students, and how much money does the state allot per person, or does that system allot per person? For the school, kind of the same, the district, and then you have the school, and then it includes the teacher-student ratio. Classroom demographics, what are the genders in the class, ethnicities, are there any gifted students in those classes? Any students with special needs? And when you talk about knowledge of the students in terms of the whole class and individuals, are there any special language needs? What kinds of approaches to learning are utilized by that teacher? Are there any information for prior learning and experiences? And we certainly hope so. Are there any academic proficiencies, any academic deficits for that particular class? Are there any behavioral issues? Are there any special areas of interest for the students? Okay, so then you'll use that in order to answer the task, the guiding prompts. The question was, do we talk about what types of students we have in the class? You do when you talk about it here with this contextual factors chart. And I think if you look at, let me see. You talk about the two charts as indicated for task step one, knowledge of students. That's where you talk about the students. And of course, the classroom demographics. Who asked me that question a few minutes ago? In text box 112, classroom demographics, knowledge of students. it asks you specifically what you need. You need to find a demographic factor here. You need to find one factor from here. And then based on that factor, describe an instructional strategy that you're going to use and a learning activity that you're going to use. So that's what you have to do. Okay? Questions? Does anybody have any questions, any comments? Are we all good? And when we meet next time, I will go over, probably do task, just look at task 2 and answer any questions that you might have. And these are very generic. This is a clinical teacher meeting. I just wanted to touch bases with them to make sure they didn't have any questions. And if any way clinicals that you can help our students, please feel free to do so. Any questions? Any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
No questions.
All right. If you do, send me an email. I'll try to do an update. Try to do an update maybe next week since we're not going to have a Zoom. And I think our next Zoom will be February. But if you need me before then, please don't hesitate to send me an email. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bill.
Thank
All
you.
right.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh, chat.
That was me, Dr. Bill.
Okay, I'm good.
I just wanted to make sure that he saw me. I'm sorry I was late.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Bye.